do I do with a child? Firstly, empathy. You know, we can either say, how come you forget this again? Why can't you remember? Or we can say, you know what, we understand that it's really hard for you to stay focused. We understand that it's hard for you to sit still and not to talk. We get that. We're not going to focus on that as something you shouldn't be. We rather show understanding for the fact that it is there, and we also need to reflect on the fact that we understand that for you, the child, this must be frustrating. It gets you feeling anxious. The second way in which I need to help the child is I need to fully inform him as to the nature and the cause of his condition. You know, many parents try and hide the truth from the child. They don't want to label the child, but what that does is it creates a lot of uncertainty with the child of why is this happening to me? And if you think about the fact that, you know, when a child is terminal with cancer, I've been to the cancer ward seeing some kids, and the child will know exactly, I've got Burkitt's lymphoma, I've got 3 months to live, this is my situation. And then the child can actually move forward and prepare. So I want the child to understand his situation. I want the child to know what supports are available to him. And I want him to understand that his life is still worth the emotional investment. That because he has a condition, he's not a failure or unloved or unwanted. He just has a condition where the behavior triggered by that condition makes it hard for him to cope in certain environments. The next thing I need to do is I need to create some structure for the child. Now, especially with inattentive children, you know, they're different from children that aren't, because what you may get is pressure from a teacher that says, look, he's 10 now, you need to leave him to get on with it. With an ADD or ADHD child, you cannot. You need to give direct support until he's at the end of grade 9. Why? Because you simply have to look at the school syllabus and see that, you know, in grade 9 they have this absolute host of subjects, and this kid just can't catch all the balls that are dropping down on him. So for any child with an attention deficit disorder, it's important that sometime in the evening I sit down with him and I say, right, we're going to do some admin. Tip out your suitcase, which will normally look like the dog's breakfast. Give me your circulars. Give me all your loose pages. Let's file this in the orange filer. Let's file this in the green folder, so that I help the child to create structure. To the extent of put your clothes out for tomorrow, put them over there, not anywhere, there, so that you create certain fixed routines by which the child does something in order to compensate for possibly forgetting. And that I explore other reminder systems, be that the phone, be that a calendar or notes on the fridge. But what's important here is I can't just put those things on and expect the child to use them. I have to physically, at a certain time, take the child there and say, right, let's check. We have to feed the dogs. Let's go do that. And it's important then that I preferably do these tasks with the child and that I facilitate as opposed to leaving it up to the child and the child then getting into trouble. If the child does forget, I can rehearse with him and we can make sure that he understands what he has to do. But just sending the child off to go and do something is a recipe for frustration. Specifically in terms of homework activities, I need to be very clear. And the way I would approach it would be to say, look, I've got a fixed time in which I can help you. I will give you 2 or 3 reminders prior to that period of time. Once that period of time arrives, I will make sure that all the screens are off, phones are off. I will be ready at the table. But if you don't rock up, I'm not going to sit and nag. I'm going to wait, read my magazine, drink my tea. And if the child arrives 10 minutes late, I'm not going to kick up a fuss. All I'm going to do is I'm not going to extend the time by 10 minutes. Because children with concentration problems don't learn from being sermonized. They learn from practically experiencing the effects of their decision. So if I decided, Mom's called me, but I quickly wanted and I didn't push myself hard enough to get to the table, I need to understand that I will be losing some of Mom's time. And that's the end of that. So if the child then rocks up at 8 o'clock in the evening, oh, mommy, please, I need to do this, I forgot, I'm going to say, talk to the hand. Because then my time to help you is past. If in the evening when I wanted you to help set out all your clothes and so on, and you chose to rather chase me away and play a computer game, I'm not going to help you look for stuff tomorrow morning, because it's on that level that the child learns. Through all of this, I've got to try and identify what the child's strengths are and how I can utilize them in the process, and how these strengths can help the child to either fully or partly achieve his goals. So, comments like you're being stupid, you're being lazy, you don't respect authority, blah, blah, blah. It's really unhelpful and actually derogatory. When it comes to reward systems, these kids do not respond well to star systems because they become disinterested and bored, and you, as their parent, who probably also suffers from ADD, will get bored and, forget. So I don't find that to be a particularly good type of reward system. For me, two types of rewarding works better. The first one is that as soon as the child comes up with a behavior that has potential or helps to work his way to solve a problem, I immediately acknowledge that. Secondly, I use a principle that's similar to gambling. You know, when people gamble and they press the button on the one-armed bandit, they do that in the expectation that maybe I'm going to win something. They don't know beforehand I'm going to win $2,000 or $5,000. The same applies when we discipline or when we reward the child. I said initially that management stands on three pillars. One being what we've just spoken about, the physical management of the child, but I also mentioned pharmacology and diet. Now, this is where, as a clinician, one often runs into a lot of trouble, and where parents will become, difficult and also blame the teacher. It's because the teacher is young, or she hasn't been trained, or she's too demanding, too difficult. They'll do anything to deflect the problem and to almost build conspiracy theories about, why somebody's suggesting that the child may have to go on medication. I want to bring you back to the simple fact that ADD or ADHD is the result of a chemical process that does not work well. So when we talk about medication, what the medication does, it actually addresses the inactivity of the dopamine, and specifically with your non-stimulants, they will also address a degree of anxiety. We know that where kids are medicated, at least 70 to 80% of them will do really well, which in terms of medication is quite a high success figure. Obviously, there are those children where meds does not work, and one has to do more environmental accommodations to assist them. But medication is really something important and appropriate to consider. It's got nothing to do with conspiracy theories or people trying to change your child into a zombie, or people trying to have it easy while they're teaching. It's really important to step back from this blame game and to say, okay. And then, of course, one doesn't just run off to your GP, you run off to a pediatrician or a child psychiatrist. You would especially do the latter if there are also conditions in your family which include things like depression, anxiety, bipolar mood disorder. You would then rather approach an appropriate child psychiatrist, get a decent assessment, from which point forward one can then introduce meds, monitor them, and tweak them until they work well for the child. There are parents that say, yeah, but what about natural products? Now, to my mind, so-called natural products do not really exist. We should rather be describing them as untested products, because ultimately, as much as we may claim about a particular substance, or as much as a healer claims in terms of the efficacy of a particular substance, the one fundamental question we have to ask is, has there been decent double-blind studies to confirm the efficacy of this particular substance? Because it's also known that certain natural products can have very adverse side effects. So it's not really an easy way out. In fact, you could find yourself dishing out a lot of money for no effect at all. Similarly, there's no exercise the child can do or therapy the child can do to adjust that chemical imbalance, irrespective of whatever the claims are that the producers of some of these substances have. So one really has to be careful that you don't, out of fear, introduce substances which could have a debilitating effect, or, on the other hand, no effect at all. Dietary considerations, again, one shouldn't be going overboard here. The general guideline is to stay away as far as you can from stimulants. Think of foods that contain caffeine, that are high in colorants, preservatives. Think of energy drinks. Those are the no-nos. We should try and avoid the junk foods, especially because of their preservative levels, flavorings. And we should probably limit sugar intake, not because sugar causes the problem, but too much sugar could exacerbate the problem. It's the same with the rest of the dietary considerations, that they do not cause the issue, but they can exacerbate the issue. So in terms of diet, one would rather try and work towards fresh ingredients, your oily fish, your tuna, your salmon, your masbankers, your snoek, as opposed to hake, making sure the child gets fresh fruit and veg, that my meats aren't too fatty, that the child has a balanced diet of protein and vegetables and so on, and that I go more for the low GI type of products. There I would urge you to consult with the with a dietitian in case you have concerns. But I think basically the important one would be any foods that are high in stimulants like caffeine, colorants, preservatives, and those that enhance energy levels. Okay, so we've covered the whole spectrum of ADD, ADHD. I hope that the series has been helpful to you. If it was, please share it with your friends, with your colleagues. And I would really appreciate it if you would then also like the channel, because over time we're going to address a lot of issues which may be relevant. So please, take care of yourself so that you can take care of the child, so that things can be okay most of the time. Goodbye and good luck.